So recently I came across this video made by a YouTuber called Regular Pat, which was essentially a big wish list of things that he would want to add in an eventual re-release of Kingdom Hearts 1, which might seem a bit surprising considering that Kingdom Hearts 1 has gotten around like 50 different re-editions. And Square Enix has pretty much squeezed as much potential as you could possibly get out of the game by, already putting on the final mix version, by remastering the original game. Even if you look back at the OG Kingdom Hearts 1, you can see that there is a lot of small differences between the Japanese version and the Western version that was released slightly later. And if you are a Kingdom Hearts 1 fan, you are a happy camper. You feel cuddled, you feel loved. And that's not what happens if you happen to be a Fable 2 fan. One of my favorite games of all time, and we didn't even get a PC port. So I was thinking, what would be a good list of things that we could add on a Fable 2 anniversary edition that will come out in like 2028, on the 20th anniversary of the original game on Xbox 360, because otherwise the anniversary nickname wouldn't quite work, and I am willing to wait at this point as much as it takes. Anyway, jokes aside, I've put together a small list of things that would adapt Fable 2 to the modern generation. And by adapt to the modern generation, I don't mean that I'm going to add microtransactions or publish the game in a state that is clearly unfinished, or all of that cool stuff that you get out of modern games. I mean, making it better. And of course, I'm not gonna include the absolute basics, I want the graphics to be better, I want them to fix all the bugs, because that's a given, okay? I'm not gonna go over all of that unless there is something specific that I think needs to be addressed and maybe isn't particularly acknowledged in the subconscious of the Fable 2 fanbase, and not to the level of granular that you could see in that Regular Path video, because of course we didn't even get a PC port, okay? There is a lot that needs to be addressed about how the game works and how we can improve it. And the very first thing that I would want to introduce to the game is of course a difficulty slider. And I want to get a bit fancy with it. I don't just want to have a hard, normal and easy difficulty slider. I mean getting a bit more detail with it, because Fable 2 isn't just a game about fighting. It's a game about, also having a bit of savviness when it comes to the economical stuff and the social interactions. It's got a bit of everything. And I think it would be really cool if you could modify each of these three aspects. I mean, the fighting, the social interactions, the economy, depending on what you specifically want out of your own experience. For example, everyone knows that you can easily farm money if you just shut the game down and wait for all of the rent money to fly right into your pockets. A hard difficulty would have you get the money manually out of each of your properties, like in Fable 1. A hard mode for the social interactions specifically would require you to be more careful in how you interact with NPCs in case you want to get something out of them. And of course the combat will have to be a lot more difficult, and the penalties when you die would have to be a lot more strict. And that kinda brings me to my second point, because the second thing that I want to add to Fable 2 is the option to permanently die. And I don't mean the fact that you have to reload your save if you die, although of course that would have to be introduced in the hard mode for specifically the combat, but I mean permadeath. I've been playing a lot of Way of the Samurai. Of course it's a very different game than the Fable series, but I think Fable could take a page or two out of this series. I think introducing a bit of an element of impermanency, just having to redo everything from scratch in case you somehow get killed, for specifically the most seasoned gamers, would add a bit of a layer of challenge. And of course you could turn it on or off regardless of the difficulty, because I really don't think there is any point in tying such a mechanic behind specifically the high difficulty. Some might think, well, this kind of decision isn't quite fit for Fable 2, and in the current state, I would agree. I would think that permadeath mode would be a bit annoying, since there is a lot of unskippable dialogue, and since there is a very long intro to the game whenever you decide to create a new save file. And that brings me to my third point. I want to streamline the game for those who have like beat it 10 times already by now. So, for example, you can skip cutscenes, you can skip the intro where you are a child and whatnot, and instead of like having to go through all of that, you are just asked if you are going to give the... Fuck, I don't remember the quest right now, but there is a quest that if you do it one way, it's going to lead to a part of the map looking completely different. You're just going to get asked which decision you would have made hypothetically in this section of the game. A new player who is playing Fable 2 for the first time shouldn't be getting this prompt. You know, you should have to go through the story mode as intended. And the way you can access this way to skip the game would be through New Game Plus, which is the other thing that I wanted to introduce. Why would Fable 2 need a New Game Plus mode? Someone would ask. Again, a big fan of Way of the Samurai. I like the way that you can just start over every time. You can store your equipment in a big box and come back when you start over. As soon as you're free to walk, you can just go there and grab all of your stuff. I think as long as you introduce a difficulty mode that is hard enough so that you would have to be very well equipped to go through it, I think it would add a new level of replayability. And, you know, of course, Fable 2 is a very easy game. Everyone who's played it will tell you that. So, if you don't want to necessarily raise the difficulty, but you just want to go through the game and feel like God with all this cool equipment pretty much as soon as you get out of the Gypsy camp, you should be able to do that. I think it would add a lot of, again, replayability, but for a different reason. Because, of course, Fable 2 is kind of a male power fantasy. You gotta give a bit of something for everyone, I suppose. And, of course, we are going to be changing the ending sequence. Yes, this game needs a proper final boss. Spoiler alert, I suppose, but if you're here, you likely already played Fable 2 at least a couple times. The final confrontation with the big baddie, Lucien, isn't much of anything. I suppose this was an attempt of Peter Molyneux to be a bit artsy, to think a bit out of the box, which, you know, in Fable 2 it produced a lot of good things. Peter Molyneux kinda gets the reputation of being a hack, and overall, I would say that this reputation is earned, but, you know, a lot of his ideas that he detailed during the course of the hype train of Fable 2 back in the day, they were really good ideas. For example, the combat. It's very simplified, I suppose, compared to Fable 1, and we will get to what doesn't work later, but I think it's very snappy. I think it works very well overall, and of course the dog being such a important part of the gameplay, and kind of the story too, at one point, plus other silly stuff that I don't have the time to get into, but yeah, I think Fable 2 is as good as it is, also because there is a lot of experimentation of this kind going on. But the ending has got to have a proper boss fight. There is no excuse whatsoever. I don't know specifically what I would do myself. There is really no indicator that Lucien would have supernatural powers if you read at his diaries and everything like that. But then again, you can come up with something if you get creative. I don't know, maybe put him in some sort of steampunk Mecha Godzilla thingy. That would be interesting, I think. Definitely better than what we got in the final product. And of course, I said I wouldn't want to get too basic when it comes to like what a remaster should be. But it's important that we clarify a couple things about like the DLC of Fable 2, because some of it is currently lost media, and it would be really nice of the developers of the remake or remaster or whatever it's gonna be if they just put it back in the game and integrated it in a way that doesn't make it feel like it's external content, you know, that you have to buy, and once you buy it, it's yours. Maybe put it back in a quest or some shit like that. In fact, you know what you could do? This brings me directly to my next point. There is cut content in Fable 2 that you can only access through data mining. There is some guy on YouTube that I think is literally called Some Guy that has been data mining Fable 2, and I found at least a cut quest which rewards you some sort of sword. I will put it on the screen. Right now I don't properly remember what I'm talking about, but it's definitely there. I think there is at least one cut quest from the game. I mean, I'm sure there is plenty more other than this one, because, you know, game developing is time consuming and not everything makes it to the final product. So an attempt to restore this quest, all the content that didn't make it to the final release, I think would add a lot of prestige to this hypothetical remaster. And it would give players who have consumed the Fable 2 to death a reason to come back, to experience what little they added. The last point I wanna close this video with, and I understand that it's like a very minor thing, and most people wouldn't even care about that, but I want better house customization. Fable 3, notoriously not as good as Fable 2 or Fable 1, arguably not even as good as Fable Legends, some would say, not to me. If there is one thing that you cannot take away from Fable 3 is that the house customization is better than Fable 1 and 2. I don't even think there is customization in Fable 1, and I think we're going to take a couple of those quality of life improvements from there and just plop them in Fable 2. For example, better control on where to place your furniture, maybe being able to change the texture of the walls. Anything that would give you more control over the houses. In Fable 2 it's kind of whatever, it's really nothing special. And you know, if you're a fan of The Sims, of course it's not going to compare even with all the improvements made in Fable 3 being added back in Fable 2. But as a side thing that you can do, it would be cool. In fact, I would keep the clunkiness of like moving around the furniture. I would do a very Peter Molyneux thing. I wouldn't like let you move around the furniture on a grid like you would in The Sims. I would just keep it the way it is, just to keep the premise as close to the original as possible. I said that this was going to be the last thing I was gonna talk about, but I lied. I literally just remembered that the magic system needs to be reworked. Fable 1 had much better magic. Everyone is going to agree with that, I think. And really, I don't think there is much that you actually need to change from the original Fable 2 in order to put it on the same level of Fable 1. I really like the way you only need to press a button for magic and you can either create this big bubble in your vicinity that will attack everyone in that range, or you can just charge and hit an individual enemy. I really like that system. I would just add you know, the option to stop time and maybe mess with the gravity. The upgrade system will have to be a bit more granular. I don't have it in front of me right now, I'm just going off of my memory, but I remember like it wasn't particularly complex. So just having a bit more options on what you can upgrade of your magic system in particular, and not just how strong an attack is going to be and how fast it takes to charge it up. I think that would be a good way to add complexity and give you more control to the player regarding their own build. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think the magic in Fable 2 is that bad. Of course, yes, Fable 1 is better, but it wouldn't even take that much, I think, to program. And I think overall, if you, like again, in the hardest difficulties, you would make it a bit more challenging by requiring mana, or by making sure that not all enemies are affected equally by certain magic. I think it would add a lot to the game's combat. I'm usually someone who likes to use the shotgun. It's kind of the easiest way to kill enemies, because ammos are infinite and you can just kill people from a distance. But in a more difficult setting, being able to fuck around with magic just to see what works and what doesn't would add a lot of fun factor. And of course, if you just want to feel like God, but with more stuff to do, that's still extra value, I would argue. Hopefully I'm not sounding like a lunatic. I'm gonna have to do a lot of editing in the video itself to correct anything I say that might be wrong or not entirely well argued. But other than that, yes, this is my list. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any other idea of what to add. Fun video to make this one. Hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed rambling here and putting it together. So I guess we will be seeing each other next time, because I have kind of a funny video planned and I don't want to spoil the surprise.